there's different friends for different purposes. And I notice a theme in the neurodivergent community where we want friends and we develop this almost, like you were saying, Aaron, perfectionistic thing around the friend has to be everything. We can't stop oversharing. We can curb oversharing, but there's going to be the day that I'm harried and frantic and didn't take my meds and I'm going to overshare. Let's say we go out for the coffee that Stephen and I are meant to have, and I do something a little strange, or we have a weird last moment. Instead of letting it go and saying, overall, it was great time, I have that post-event rumination, and then I start texting Stephen to explain.
And apologizing or over-explaining.
True story. I had a client once follow someone into a bathroom to be like, oh, I want to explain what just happened. Don't do that. Like, it creeps people out.
Yeah, flat out. Welcome to the Attention Different podcast. My name is Stephen Tonti, avowed story scientist, and today my co-founder and partner and co-host of the show is
Aaron Smith. I'm a licensed clinical therapist and ADHD coach at Potential Within Reach.
Ever feel like there must be a manual for friendship, but you never got one, but everyone else got one? Yeah? Well, then this episode is for you. Our guest today spent 2 decades writing 2 books on neurodivergence and friendship. Yep, that's right. You guessed it. She actually made the friendship manual. 𝐂𝐚𝐫𝐫 Maguire is an ADHD coach, a neurodivergent person herself, and the author of Friendship Skills for Neurodivergent Adults. Perfect. Today, we're getting into why friendship is genuinely harder with ADHD and ADHD brains. Not because of who you are, but because we were never given the skills to navigate it properly. We're talking about specific patterns that wreck our relationships, the classics, the post-event spiral, the anxious over-apologizing, can relate, the crunchy, cringy moments that you can't stop replaying on repeat in your head, and why so many of us either rush into friendships too fast or avoid them entirely. If you've ever wondered whether you're just, quote, bad at this, please stick around because 𝐂𝐚𝐫𝐫 has a very different answer. Without further ado, 𝐂𝐚𝐫𝐫 Maguire, welcome to the Attention Different podcast. We're so thrilled to have you, and I can't believe we're talking about friendship today.
I'm so happy to be here. That was like the best introduction. I'm going to like play that on a loop when I'm sad. Like it's like validates my whole life.
Awesome. We'll clip it. You know what I mean? A big thank you to producer David, who helps us write those.
Thank you, David. I appreciate you.
So today is a friendly conversation about friendship.
As opposed to an unfriendly conversation about friendship. As opposed
to a warlike conversation about friendship.
I have to add in a dad joke right at the beginning. You know?
Right.
I like that. I love that.
So you've been doing this work for over 20 years. And before we get into kind of the book and the framework, your new book, which I have here, I'm working through it myself. So I have it, put it up on the screen. And before we get into the book and all of the great frameworks you put out in here about friendship and how to go about this, I want to talk about your own personal journey, especially around your own, why you got into this kind of work. I know it was kind of earlier on in your career, and then also your own relationship to friendship. So can you just give us an idea of that trajectory and that journey? What got you into this?
What got me into it was that when I trained as a coach, like 24 or 5 years ago, whenever it was, 2005 is when I started.
Okay.
I had trained at the ADD Coach Academy, got my certification. Very shortly after, I was fortunate enough to go to work for the Hollowell Center. And I had access to so many different client types. Like I was primarily wanting to work with kids, teens, and young adults, but there were so many people and there was so little coaching back then. There were literally people flying in from Japan to see Ned Hollowell and to coach with you for like 1 or 2 sessions. And then like there was no one to refer to. Like, right. So we're talking like, you know,
right at the beginning of like
right at the beginning
coaching as it was coming up.
Right. And so, but I just noticed a theme, like none of my clients had friends. I would go to, you know, a support group that was supposed to be about time management at night to like do a favor to a therapist there. And I'd be talking to the adults and they didn't have friends either. And the topic would come up, relationships, managing them, trying to keep up with people, all the things we talk about very openly now. And I had had a really hard time. I had been bullied. I'd had a really hard time with friendship as a kid. And I was kind of like, I mean, you have to understand, it wasn't discussed. Like, it wasn't discussed that like ADHD people have a hard time with friendship. And so I was like, this is a thing, you know? And then I started thinking, if I could go back, get a master's degree, learn everything about executive function, social emotional learning, and then like help people, then I could like talk about this thing that's central to everyone's life and that had been life-changing for me, right? And I started helping people before I finished my master's, certainly. Like I started helping people from that moment on, but it was really partly an ADHD trait too. I don't like it when we don't talk about the stuff that needs talking about. It drives me bananas. And P.S. at that time, the powers that be, because it was before the internet is what it is, right? So there were gatekeepers to articles, to conferences. They were like, Caroline, people can't get to work on time. No one wants to talk about friendship. And that also incensed me. I was like, you guys are gatekeeping a topic that is really, really important because you think you're deciding what we need. We need time management. But why do I get to work on time? I get to work on time so that I can have fun with my coworkers, right? So I was just like, this is bonkers, right?
And it's one of those meaningful things in life. I mean, I know in your book you talked about that study. It was like the Harvard study that was like 85 years in the making or something. It was a long-term study. Yeah. And they talked in there about that it was one of the most crucial things that they found around 100%. Life meaning and flourishing and stuff is having those social connections. And that came out long after this, right? I think you had already been working on this for a long time.
This was like 2005 era, and that came out like 2 years ago, right? The Harvard happiness study. But I just had experienced loneliness. So I was like, this is the key to happiness. Like kids don't want to just talk about their homework. They want a reason to do things. You know what I mean? I was like, it's motivation.
And they don't. They talk about their friend. They talk about what they did with a friend at school. Like, you'll never guess what Tommy did with the insert sport ball or like trading card or like it's the conversations, the pro-social bonds they're making that they're spending. I've worked with third graders, fourth graders, fifth graders. They are talking about their peers. That's the stuff they're talking about.
Or I don't have anyone to play ball, cards, whatever with, and I want it. They're not talking about like, well, I hope I really get like a better GPA so that I can get into like a top 25 college so that I can satisfy my parents' own, so I just felt like it was so important. So that's really how this journey started. And it also partly started because that ADHD trait where you go, wait, you don't get to gatekeep what we care about. And Ned was super supportive and was like, this is everything, right? I don't know if his book Connection was out yet, but I feel like it might have already been out. And
that's important.
But I do know he was like, do this, right? And I was like, can I run social skills groups for kids? And he was like, yeah. So I had a therapist I work with who knew her stuff, and we did it. And then we did it differently. And so it all started out of that ADHD incensed thing we get where we're like, no, you don't get to tell us how we're going to live. We're going to tell you how we're going to live.
Hey, Stephen here. Sorry to interrupt. We just wanted to take a brief moment to tell you about this week's sponsor. At Attention Different, our mission is simple. Offer ADHD adults proven practical strategies for living a more balanced, fulfilled ADHD life. And that is why we are thrilled to offer our latest course, Thriving with Adult ADHD. While other courses might focus on the pain and struggle of being an adult with ADHD, and we do not want to minimize that, this course is designed around accessible, relevant, and applicable techniques that address the most common challenges facing ADHD adults. Inside Thriving with Adult ADHD, you will learn how to get organized by building routines and habits to bring structure to your days. You'll learn to find balance by optimizing medication, self-care, and professional support. Improve focus by using tools to cut through distractions and get things done. Thriving with Adult ADHD features 2 hours of on-demand video, 10 downloadable resources, lifetime access to the material, and a satisfaction guarantee. Go to attentiondifferent.com/thriving to sign up now. That's attentiondifferent.com/thriving to sign up now. Hey, thanks for the quick break. Now back to the interview. Can I ask a small clarifying question just for a data point? When you realized that ADHD folks didn't have any friends, I just want to double underscore this. Do you mean 0? Or like they would have a best friend? Like could they point to a single friend? Or was it really the crisis? Yeah. Was it the crisis of having no connections? Or was it more just an ongoing, as Aaron just put, an ongoing struggle to make friends?
It was like the ongoing struggle to make friends, right? And it was like that classic thing too of like, I have this one friend, but then they moved away. Or I have a singular friend, and it was that thing of like, I'm lonely in a crowd. Like it was just that journey that many of us have been on of like, I don't feel like I'm good at this thing. I don't know why. People don't, seem to jibe with me. It was that the journey is really hard. And this has always been hard for me. And I don't really know what to do about it.
Yeah, it's that struggle of fitting in and feeling like you have a place.
Yeah, exactly. And then also, thinking that it's just going to be childhood and now you're an adult and it's still a thing. And you're like, geez, I thought this was just because people in high school are mean, Yeah. And now here I am an adult and I'm struggling again, or I'm, not doing something. Like many people have told me, I'm staying in a job because I don't want to interview because I feel like I'm not good at it. And I just also saw it as like, it's all these different skills that we don't necessarily have or feel confident that we have, because maybe you have them, but you don't feel confident in them. And it was just this general thing that was affecting all of us. And it was just shocking to me that it wasn't just kids and it wasn't just teenagers. It was adults too. And then once I was allowed by the gatekeepers to start talking about it, and by the way, ADD.org was the first group who was like, yeah, this is important, talk about it. Then it was like people were coming to my talk standing room only at the international conference and at other you know what I mean? So then it became like, well, you guys don't think it's important, but like, obviously the ADD community wants to talk about it.
This is now a very central issue and something that's being recognized. And I think you put this on the map in a lot of ways. You were one of those key promoters that said like, hey, this is something we all need to have in the conversation. This is not a side thing. This is central. And so I do credit you a lot. I mean, Hallowell's book for sure, like was helpful here, but I think, your first book also kind of put that out there too, of like, this needs to be something we're all talking about. And I just want to understand too, because I know that there's this thing in the zeitgeist about masking and unmasking and how we present our authentic selves in relations, both friendships, acquaintances, coworker relationships, at the job, these different contexts. And I'm curious for you how that has evolved too, because I think from your first book and from some of those approaches that I think are out there that are somewhat standard approaches that were in therapy around, we need to help people fit in. We need to help them fit in better. And what they need to do is almost adjust their own mannerisms and way of being and essentially mask themselves to fit in more. And there was this push to kind of force the round peg into the square hole to do that for like the neurodivergent person to be more neurotypical. And I think over the last few years, there in the neurodiversity movement has come up and people have been more vocal around, no, I want to unmask and there's a whole idea there around that, right? Of like, how do we present ourselves authentically? So I'm just wondering about that that journey for you around, from that more traditional type of approach to unmasking and what that looks like now?
Yeah, I'll say this first. I'm not saying I was always like fully aware of this. I definitely think that I was originally having some thoughts that probably were more fit-in-ish, but it did start to gel for me. There are some things that aren't even on my resume where I worked for other people, learning things, having social emotional training, and I didn't even put them on my resume because I didn't click with these practitioners, because they would say, well, a kid, for instance, I'll never forget this one incident where they were like, a kid has to have their top button unbuttoned. Oh. And I was like, you can make friends with your top button buttoned, right? Like I'm working with like hundreds of kids here.
Like that was a metaphor.
So like an autistic kid might feel more comfortable with their top button buttoned.
Literally.
And they would be like, no, you have to like have it unbuttoned. And they would like have these kids in a social group and they would be like, you have to do this. And I was like, why?
Oh, assimilate. Right? Oh, like forced assimilation.
Assimilate, dress like everybody else, like lose the Avenger t-shirt and wear this. And I just had worked with so many kids. I was like, that's just not the reason people don't like you. There's nothing to do with the price of fish, right? So I had that, like that revolution started to happen for me where I was just like, wait, that's not the issue. Why are we pushing kids this way? And so I parted with those people, didn't even put any of those trainings I took on my resume because I was like, I don't want any association because I knew this was coming. Cool. Like I started to get that sense of like the day will come when the autistic community will grow up and say, you made us fit in and you made us mask. And I was like, and I'm not going to have any association with those people.
Hell yeah.
And it didn't probably like, how did that feel to you when, because that was the evidence.
That was the provided, yeah.
That was the evidence-based recommendation. I mean, I remember this like even 10, 15 years ago. That was
right. Yeah. That was the recommendation. Yeah. I think I had people who validated me. So I remember leaving a thing that particularly the day of the top button thing, which was just for me like bananas. And I talked to like my mentor, David Quirk from the ADD Coach Academy. And I talked to some other people. And they were like, if you work with these kids and you have such good results in the sense that they make friends and you feel like they gain self-esteem and confidence, which is like the most important thing, not that they fit in, but that they feel good. And you feel like this isn't the way, then don't do it. Right. And so I started adjusting things, but I did take flack. Right. Like I did take flack from practitioners and psychologists and people who were like, I feel like you worked with this client, but you didn't get them to change their exterior, for instance. And I was like, yeah, and I just started to move into this space mentally, even as I was promoting Why Will No One Play With Me and speaking to all these audiences, where I moved in this place mentally where I thought, you guys are typical. Why are you telling us how to friend? Like it just started to be like a talk track in my brain where I started to think, we can't stop oversharing. We can curb oversharing, but there's going to be the day that I'm harried and frantic and didn't take my meds and I'm going to overshare.
Yeah.
And the shame cycle is like you were being fed up. Dangerous. I started getting fed up.
Yeah. I'm absolutely just sick of hearing this and it's wrong.
And then as I talked to so many adults, and some of this came from my work that I did with How to ADHD and Jessica McCabe and making videos with her and doing research with her and just talking to all these people, I just started to think like, neurodivergent people should be leading this because we friend differently and we do things differently and we need to be able to write our own path, right? Because we understand ourselves. And then I started to realize like, we can't be typical. And the more we try to shove ourselves in that box, the more we're miserable. And like, no matter what I do, I cannot get someone who is ADHD to talk exactly like a typical person. So all we're doing is making people mask. And then the whole masking term came up, right? So it was like, I was having these thoughts and then the whole masking thing came up. And then I talked to so many adults when I was writing this book who told me their story of how those same groups did oppress them and then how they didn't even know themselves, that they're 30, 40, 50 years old and they did have intervention, which we didn't, so it was terrible.
Yeah. Let's define this for people. So like tell us, what is masking? What exactly is masking?
So masking is camouflaging and pretending not to have neurodivergent traits. So to suppress your neurodivergent traits. So I wouldn't fidget, I wouldn't stim, I would dress in a, heteronormative way. I would, pretend in the way I speak. I would script my speak and really, speech and like really camouflage. And I wouldn't also express my neurodivergent needs. So if you have sensory issues, I wouldn't say like, I really can't sit in the sun and like sit in an outdoor cafe. Like that makes me get a headache and I get sensory issues. Or I'm not going to a loud concert because it's just not a place I can be social. You would go along, right? And you would pretend and really suppress those needs to the point where eventually you don't really know, like, do I like vanilla or chocolate? I don't know, because I've been people pleasing so long and I've been telling everybody I love chocolate.
Ooh, heavy moment.
Try to make the friends. Yeah, it's like
you start self-defining, self-identifying.
It's adjusting your preferences and your identity.
Yeah.
And hiding away some of those things that actually are your interests and natural preferences or ways of being to fit in and to keep friends, to attract or to keep friends. Like I have clients that tell me kind of ways they do this, right? And some of them will say like, people will talk about TV shows or things and their friends will share about some TV show and they'll pretend to like it or pretend to have watched it or pretend to be into that or maybe even watch the show for a little bit, even though they don't like it, just to have some of those conversations. Or like a sports team, right? Like, I'll watch a game or a sports team and pretend that I'm a fan of this team.
Everybody listening, raise your hand in the car or your kitchen or your home. Like if you the sports team thing just came up for this queerdo. Like I do like sports, but like I was forced into innumerable teams merchandise of stuff that I didn't fucking watch. I was wearing
you wore the merchandise too?
I bought Manchester United scarves and jerseys so that I could.
Oh my God. I totally believe you, and I hear this every day. But then I'm always like agog, right? Like I've been there. Like I didn't dress and act the way I wanted to necessarily as a kid, so I totally get it. Like Manchester United.
It's great. It's a gray area though too. Like just so that I want to be clear. I didn't hate or not enjoy. I'm not talking about like the scenario where someone is forced to go to a concert and they can't stand crowds and that overstim is too much. I enjoyed going to a bar with my roommate and watching a soccer game, right? And I could get into, because of my brain wiring, like the data and the stats about this player and that. But eventually all of the all the players' names would like blend together, and I was not on the early Reddit threads, like following their whole freaking lives. I mean, like real sports fans are like sports betting adjacent. Yeah, they know everything, right? Like they have fantasy leagues. The amount of fantasy leagues I joined, and I just wasn't playing. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I love it so much. I love it so much. And here's the thing I want to say too. I think there's a balance, right? So what I talk to sometimes about kids and teens and stuff is I kind of try to push them back to, why do you want to be friends with these people who want these sports teams or these shows that you don't necessarily care about, right? And sort of like, are they your people? And I kind of try to go back to basics. But I also respect when someone says, in my school, in my environment, because I think it's different for kids. Kids have less agency than we do, right? I can move. I could be like, there's nobody in my area who's like me. I'm moving, right? I can do all kinds of things as an adult.
Yeah, as a child, you have no choice. It's like, my parents live here. I'm going to this school. Yeah. I can't really leave. I don't have that ability.
So if they're like, I need to watch this show, I need to be able to make conversation on this topic, will you teach me? I absolutely will, because I think that there's a point of, they're trying to form social connection. Now, a lot of kids want to be friends with people that I'm like, they're not necessarily good for you, but I allow them to have that journey. And I think that's also a difference.
Yeah. We can't save them from that experience. And in some ways, it's like that could be detrimental in and of itself of trying to protect them or overly coddle them to say, oh, you shouldn't experience any discomfort or something, or learn those hard lessons, it's important for them to go out and like try that too, of like find their social group. I mean, all of us probably did that, of like, do I fit into this group? Do I fit into this group? Is this the place for me? And we figure that out, and we continue to figure that out into adulthood too, right? Like
I was going to say, Aaron, exactly. Like I was like, why should we restrict this only to kids? I feel like that I've lost track the number of times with friends. I'm like, well, take a little risk, like go out, be yourself, go out into that space and see if you like going to that concert, or maybe you're not into drag brunches, or maybe you're not into book club, or maybe you're not into, but you got to try one,
Okay. Whoever is not into drag brunches, like, I'm sorry, they're missing
Girl,
out.
we don't have to. Yeah, of course not. Then there's something functionally wrong with that person.
But I mean, I think that's also a thing I talk about in the book, which is practice. So instead of forming everything as like, this is the end all be all, this is the group I'm going to join, this is the activity I'm going to take, this is like the setting your intention of like, this is the only friend I can ever have, to be like, everything is practice and experimentation. And I'm trying to figure out who I am and then who my people are. And some things are going to work out and some things aren't. And to have that practice mentality and mindset, instead of I went and it wasn't good and I failed, which isn't true. It just wasn't the right place, right? Or it wasn't the right group, or it wasn't other people who love what you love.
Yeah. So you recommend, so something I think is like finding who your people are and where those groups are. So I know like we experience this a lot when we go to CHAD conferences, international ADHD conferences, neurodivergence, places like that, where we have a large number of neurodivergent folks in those rooms. And overwhelmingly, it's like, there's this sense that you found your people.
Yes.
How do you talk to your clients about doing that? Yeah. Like finding those groups and as a skill of making more friends?
So first, when we go to the international conference, I better see you guys. You better come up to me, because we've never met at the international conference before, and that's bananas. That is. Two, I think one of the first things is that interest is our fuel. And I think a lot of times, especially late diagnosis folks, haven't understood interest and how important it is. And so it's like when you went to your, Manchester United, it stopped being interesting for you, right?
It did.
And so we have to have interest in order to, not be bored, not feel like it's not worth it, to find that zing with people, which is special. When you zing with someone and you sync with them and you have something in common, I mean, that thing is really important. So I think that's the first step, is like, to find your people, you have to know what are your interests and what do you find enjoyable? How do you want to spend your time? And I think that's a shift in the book that I've taken, that a lot of Aaron's super aware of, like the other social skills practitioners in the marketplace, like they're not neurodivergent. So I don't think they get that, like, we have to be interested. And it's not what Caroline Maguire thinks in terms of how many friends you should have or how you should spend your time. It's like, what fills your social cup? How social do you want to be, right? How many friends do you feel that you need in order to feel fulfilled? And I always say go 25%, right? Because like we tend to kid ourselves. So, if you think you need 2 friends, add 1 more, right? Just so that we're getting the connections we need.
Yeah.
On the part 2 of this down the line, because today I think it's important to cater to our homies who are struggling to make friendships. We're going to flip the script on the part 2, Caroline, when you come back, and we're going to talk about
I would love it.
How to pare down, how to pare back, because I'm in the category of having made too many connections and spread yourself thin in terms of responsibility and needing to pare back. That's not a humble brag for people listening. It's the other side of the coin that we'll get to it another day. Boundary setting.
Well, and it's also am I with people I don't want to be with?
I did pick up on that. Yeah.
Right. So I think it's not a humble brag. It's a discernment thing, right? It's like I want to, it's the unmasking too. It's I want to stop people pleasing. So we would definitely do a part 2. I'm already excited. Yeah.
But I could see an entire discussion of just that segment you brought up of masking for the need to be seen as someone with friends, but ending up in groups of people with responsibilities that you never originally really wanted. Like that's a profound self-reflection.
How do we do this? How do we go about finding those people, finding the people or finding the groups to go and be friends with as adults?
So my recommendation is to take that interest and go to highly interactive activities. So there's some activities we all know because we've gone to them where you don't actually talk to anyone, right? You're there, but you're like adjacent to people, or you don't have that highly interactive thing where you can get to know someone. So that's why this is also practice and experimentation, because you're going to go to some things and you might be like, I didn't talk to anybody. There was no chance to get to know someone. I don't care what the moderator said or what Reddit said or whatever. And we're going to go and we're going to join things. It can be online, right? If you're like, my interests are super niche, or I'm socially uncomfortable and like Caroline's asking me to do something that feels like too big a leap, online is a great way to start. And then we go and we have to give it time. And then we are trying to get to know people. And it's easier because now we have a shared interest and a shared language. So to pick on your football thing, Stephen, like the thing is that when you have a shared language around football, one reason we mask and we pretend to like things is that there's a whole community around it, right? And so when we join things that we like or we're interested in, there's kayaking communities, there are outdoor communities, there are, communities around art, there are communities around photography. You have this language that instantly makes it easier to bond and to talk about things.
Yeah.
And so that's why I want highly interactive activities that feed with our interests, because then it's less awkward. There's less like small talk, and there's more of that bigger talk that we really like, or that talk around the interest that you share. And there's a huge amount of research around proximity, that proximity to people and being with people again and again and again and having those shared experiences, it helps really nurture the friendship versus if you don't come or you don't see them repeatedly. And that I know is hard for us. And that's why I have many chapters on how to keep up with people. But it is like that interface, it does matter.
To simplify this, it's like the more time that you spend in a location with the person, the more likely that becomes a relationship.
Yes.
If it's just
right.
And it does have to do with like just the time. So I think sometimes people, what we do, and this is sometimes, like you said, like we forget to follow up, we forget to call people, we put stuff off because we get busy. But what happens is there's these large gaps of time between when we're actually being in the same room or actually doing these activities with those people. And like what I found in my social group too, because I have a Wednesday night kind of guys group that we meet every week. Yeah. And it's that repetition and that group that helps us form those closer bonds. Because if it wasn't happening over and over and we weren't always kind of seeing each other on this one day, we're not building that quality time to forge a closer relationship.
100%. And then you don't have those add-on conversations. Because while you were together, oh my God, sorry, Stephen.
No. I was just meant to say, because it's like a little bit of an ego throw, but the the soccer fan thing is nuanced in a cool way. I also want to encourage folks, if you find a friend where you share some number of common interests, but not everything is the same. I don't want perfect to be the enemy of the good in this situation, right? Like I love the fact that like actually going to that soccer game was a common meeting ground with that particular best friend. And just because I don't care about Wayne Rooney's, that's part of the growth, right? And you talk about other stuff.
Right. It's not that you have to make only friends that only like the exact things you do. Exactly. But if there's something in common, like, oh, I like this sport, but they like this sport, let me understand why they like what it is about them. Yeah. You can investigate that. You can kind of pay attention to that, learn about different cultures, different interests, different proclivities, and decide. Because sometimes what we do also is we shut off those learning opportunities prematurely. Right. Like, oh, I wouldn't like that. I don't do that. Well, have you tried?
Yes, that's what he's trying to say.
Yeah, that reaction of like fully shutting down something. Don't lose sight of the fact of what exactly Aaron just said. And it was a two-part thing. One, proximity is key. And what Caroline was pointing at, just being next to that person with some regularity. For Aaron, it's Wednesdays. For me, and pick the friend, it's a Saturday or a Tuesday or a Thursday, depending on the activity. But being near that person and creating regularity, right? A pattern, then like the relationship starts to be birthed organically. It starts to form naturally. And then also, if you don't like the thing, well, then you start to, that's part of the growth in that relationship. You find those other tendrils, right? Those other things that you relate to with this person. And maybe it shifts from being soccer day to being reading a book at a cafe day, or being picnic day.
Commonality, points of connection.
Yeah.
And I think this goes back to another theme of the book, which is there's different friends for different purposes. And I notice a theme in the neurodivergent community where we want friends, and we develop this almost, like you were saying, Aaron, perfectionistic thing around the friend has to be everything. And I blame Hollywood, because I think we have this like fantasized version that this one person is going to be everything to us. And I think it's because we didn't have this one person. So we've built up what this is going to be, or we've based it on like a Hollywood version.
The romantic idea.
It's a romantic idea. I just have found that I have clients who are literally like, I made this great friend, and when I'm with them, I feel fabulous, but they don't, like this other thing. And so they're not fulfilling all my needs. And I'm like, okay, so then we'll make another friend. We'll make another friend, right?
It does do that. Yeah.
Right. Or like, think about sticky topics, right? We all have that friend who we can't talk about money with, or we can't talk about, your mother with, or we can't talk about divorce with, right?
Yeah, you're not going to share your deepest like vulnerabilities and secrets and things too, and they're not quite there for you in that way,
right? Or like that like I'm not getting divorced or anything. I love my husband, but like if you bring up divorce with them or things that are going on, they're so triggered about it that it becomes all about them.
Yeah.
So you talk to Stephen about it. You don't talk to someone else, right? And I think what happens in the neurodivergent community is like we want one encompassing best friend who loves Manchester United, drag brunches, and like I want to go to Ralph's Coffee at the Ralph Lauren store in New York City. It's like one of the things I want to do. I don't know why. It's just a weird thing. Oh, and I love the Royals. So you must love the Royals too. No, there's no one person who meets all those needs. You're going to have different people. And I think
you just read out my Bumble profile. So let's be clear, Caroline. You did.
Great. You can come to Ralph's Coffee with me.
You just did read out my coffee meets bagel profile. No, but I agree.
Okay,
I have on the other side of the coin, I have lost friendships, and we can talk about. I think this will be a good segue to sort of like the post-event scenario, the sort of the ruminations of that. I've lost friendships where the other person, also neurodivergent but different diagnosis than mine, best friend for many years, because that person expected me to be the total container, right, of their feelings and of their life journey. And if it wasn't, only me, it was me and like two other people. And this was spoken to me, right? Like, hey, Stephen, I only have 2 best friends, or I only have 3 best friends. And so if you aren't there for every single event in my life, then you cannot be my best friend anymore, right? And for me, that became untenable. That was not a boundary or a need that I could meet, period. And it sucked. It sucked. I didn't want to not be this person's best friend, but based on their definition of best friendship, it was.
So what are those? Because you talk about social GPS, like what are those buckets of friends that we can make? How do we classify them for people that don't know that?
Yeah. So I think that one of the things we don't talk about is the levels of friendship. And I think one of the things that happens is often we will feel rejection sensitivity because we are leaning on someone who is an acquaintance. And an acquaintance is someone maybe you do an activity with. You might not know their last name. You might have some good conversations, but they're not an intimate friend. You don't have trust with them. You don't have closeness with them. They don't know everything about your history, right? And I think one of the things that happens is we imbue someone with the name friendship when they're really an acquaintance.
Okay.
So I think it's really important to know someone's an acquaintance. Yeah. Then there's like an emerging friend, right? They're like an activity buddy. There's somebody you're becoming friends with. You've had some good times with them, right? You're going to activities with them. But again, I'm not leaning on them in the same way that, like, Stephen, you were describing someone wanted you to lean.
Yeah.
Right.
You don't like know them that well. You're just like, I've been to this event. We do this activity together. We say, we're friendly and stuff.
Meetup group friend. Yeah. You see them every Saturday for Frisbee. Yeah.
Right. And maybe you want to bring them and nurture them and have them become a friend. But I think because we struggle with boundaries and because we struggle with like leaning on people or knowing how much to share, it's important to sort of name that they are an emerging friend. They are not your friend yet. Then we have friends, and these are people that we do have closeness with, intimacy with. Trust is track record. Trust we give away really easily. Trust is me knowing how you're going to deal with my information. Are you going to throw things in my face? Are you going to be like, well, yeah, Caroline, but like you got yourself into that situation. Like, ooh, ouch, no, right? And then we have close friends. And I think one of the things that I try to sort of articulate is that we have friends for different purposes. So not everyone has to run in that close friend category. But I think because we don't like small talk and stuff, we kind of want people to be in that close friend category. But this is the other thing, and I'm going to say it, and it's like very ouch.
We need to hear it.
Not everybody wants to be our friend. So we might go to an activity and we might really jive with someone and we might like them. Yeah. Like I'm loving Stephen right now. We have the same friend Bumble profile, right? But Stephen might be like, Stephen has too many friends, right? So true. So like, it's not me if we have fun at activities and I'm like, hey, like we should get coffee sometime. And Stephen's not like, yeah, like let's do that. It might not be about you, but because we've been rejected so much, we tend to take it as about us.
Reach. Yes. Yeah.
Right. But like people have to be open. So I keep using myself in podcasts as a true example. I met someone who I really like. We were friends in baby groups. Okay. And last year, sadly, her wife passed away from cancer. And I include a story in the book about this and how we have different friends for different purposes. And I was going to include her in the book. And I really ran into her wife a lot. And I was like, wow, damn, I like her. So we started having coffee. And then when it was time for all this publishing stuff to start, I was literally like, listen, I'm about to disappear for like 6 months. Yeah, and it's not you, it's me, right? I'm going to be so busy. But because you don't know me as well as I knew your wife, right? I want you to know that I'm not disappearing to be like a big old jerk. I'm disappearing because I have this publishing thing. And she was like, that's fine, right? Or if I met someone today, I'm so busy, I might like you, but I'm so full up on this whole launching the book first month stuff that I might not return your overture as much because I don't have time. That's not about you. That's about me.
Yeah. So we like what you're saying is we can communicate our needs, our wants, our desires, our preferences, and be open with people and share those things. Tell folks like, hey, I have this going on. I'm not going to be as available as I'd like to be, reach out in this way, or here's how I'm going to be able to still maintain this connection and have that conversation with them of like, what are your expectations? What are your needs? What are my needs? Yeah. And both of you come to terms on that of like, if this is important to both of you, how do we navigate this? It's a relationship. It's not a one-sided thing.
I just remembered, Aaron, we heard about this from Melissa Orloff in a previous interview, right? Where she talked about having this coffee date that was so bizarre to her and the person there because Melissa was like, I'm going to speak my wants, my dreams, my desires right here on this first friend date that had been set up, if I'm remembering correctly. And the friend responded very bizarre. Like the friend was like, this is such a weird way to open this up. But Melissa was like, I'm standing on business. This is how these are my principles and values. And this is how I don't run into a landmine later, right? I'm setting the boundaries early. And the friend told her later, right? They became very close friends. Later was like, yes, that was weird. right? And we all have to accept, we all have to accept, right? Like radical self-acceptance and radical self-expression means we give that right and authority to other people too, right? So that person said, yes, that was weird. But also it was one of the most sincere and intimate things anyone's ever done on like a first friend date. Like that was, I believe it was so authentic, and you were being so vulnerable with me that I felt safe to continue having this relationship based on your boundaries, right? And Melissa was like, bing, bing, that's what I was going for, right? So I want to give our audience the authority that we are already weird. Let's call it, let's radically accept it. We are already strange, right? If you can agree that everyone listening is already strange, we're already neurodivergent, then like lean into that, turn into the skid, set your boundaries early, speak these things out, tell people I'm in month 1 of a publishing thing that's going for 6 months. Here's the situation. I might text you back. I might not. I might really need a coffee with someone new and novel in my life. And girl, it's you. Like that might be you.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I can develop.
Or I don't always make eye contact, or when I'm thinking of things, I might look off because I'm collecting my thoughts. And that's not that I'm not interested. It might be I'm in my head, I'm thinking about this really deeply.
Or I might have weird appetites or a weird style of dressing, or like, this is the thing about me. You're already sharing so courageously your vulnerable self, your empowered, vulnerable self. If the person receiving that cuts you out of their life, that is not you. That's not your problem. That is their boundary, their ones. They weren't meant for you. And that's awesome. That's how the filtration process works.
Well, and if you like someone and they seem to like you, and you're in an activity and you have a good time together, and you try to make overtures or try to do what I call a next step, and are like, hey, let's do this together. And they say, listen, my mother's in a nursing home. I'm dealing with my whole family. I'm full up. I'm this, I'm that. That is not about you. And part of this is we take everything, because we were little kids who were left out and no one played with us. We take everything. So many times my clients like, show me a text. And I'm like, this person didn't say, I despise you, Stephen and Aaron.
Yeah. They didn't even say you.
They didn't even say you. They just said, I just don't have capacity right now. I like you so much. I'm so sorry. And it to me, it's like that is, we interpret so many things as about us. There's a social snafu. People have told me stories where I'm like, but wait, you didn't do anything.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, the group fell apart and it must be me because I have ADHD and everything I touch turns to, and I'm like, no, like we take it on.
That's the story you're telling yourself.
That's the story you're telling yourself. So I just think it's important to think of that.
I wish often with the people I'm working with or counseling through their own friendship crises, like I wish for myself that I could in a moment understand instantly how hard and difficult it is for me emotionally and psychologically to put up those boundaries and to protect myself, and then give that same gift, that same energy to the other person on the other line, right? Like if I were able to seamlessly be like, oh, it was really hard for that person to send me a text and set up a boundary, right? No, my mom is in the hospital. I have too much on my plate right now, right? The subtext is not about you, about me, but we read it as about me. I did something wrong. How do you work with folks to understand more quickly or to recover as fast as possible, right? That, no, that was really difficult for them to send. That was just as difficult for them as it is for me. That other people have the right to put up a boundary, and that's not about me.
I teach them exactly what Aaron is talking about. Like, this is a story you're telling yourself. Like, what is the story? And like, what evidence is there in that text? Because what usually happens is the client comes to me or they text me, because I allow my clients to text me, and they text me and they'll say, I have to talk to you about this, Caroline, because I was completely rejected flat out from someone. So they write me this text, right? And then we get into session and they share their screen and they show me the text from the other person. And I read the text and I'm like, you told me this story. There's none of this story in this text.
Can't relate.
Right?
Yeah.
And like, I've been there too. Like, I understand anxious overcorrection because I was a champion anxious overcorrector in college. Like, I'm sure there's people who've been listening to me in groups. I want to say that because I'm sure there's people who knew me who were like, she did that. I did. Right. I think.
What's anxious overcorrection? Yeah.
Okay. Anxious overcorrection is like when let's say we go out for the coffee that Stephen and I are meant to have, and I do something a little strange, or we have a weird last moment. Yeah. And instead of letting it go and saying, overall, it was great time, right? I have that post-event rumination, and then I start texting Aaron or Stephen to explain my behavior or the faux pas or what I really meant,
and
right?
Apologizing or over-explaining.
Yes. True story. I had a client once follow someone into a bathroom to be like, oh, I want to explain what just happened. Don't do that. Like, it creeps people out.
Yeah, flat out.
But like, I fully admit that I used to be a person who was like calling you, because this is the 90s, right? To be like, hey, I just want to let you know, like, what I really meant by this is da 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 da. And the problem, and it happens all the time in my clients. Okay. Yeah. And the problem is, A, they may not have had any problem with you whatsoever, and it was one tiny moment, and they didn't think about it at all. Right. You've now highlighted it to them, right? Yeah. And unless you offend someone, look, if you say something terrible and you didn't mean to, and you say the wrong thing at the wrong time and you hurt someone, then apologize, right?
And that's not overcorrection. That would be an appropriate correction, because you're taking responsibility for something you did that did offend someone, even though you didn't mean to. Yeah, that's appropriate.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Do apologize. But also, once you've apologized, let it go.
Yeah.
Right? Let it go. But anxious overcorrection is when you just keep going back to these things and explaining, and it makes people, they may have had no problem with what you did, and they may not have even thought about it. But you've also created the story again. You've created the story about what happened.
You've given it value. You've given it weight. It now has stakes. Yeah. Well, it didn't.
Right. And you've inserted this whole thing that you've assumed that had happened. And we get, right, like the whole thing about assumptions is, you make an ass out of you and me, or whatever.
Right.
How
that, right? Yeah, that phrase, I can't remember. Yeah.
And like, that's where we get in trouble. Don't assume, don't say the reality. Like if you feel that way and you're unsure, like, oh man, did I say something wrong? Did I offend them? I'm not really sure. Because that's valid, right? Maybe you're not sure. Regardless of if it's a good look or not, to like, is it showing I'm insecure about this thing and I'm revealing that to someone that may not be so close that is going to respond, judge me for it or something. But barring that, setting that aside, it's something that like you can just ask a question about, right? Confirm that reality, clarify, like, hey, did you have any, like, what did you think about how we said goodbye to, today or something, or hey, was there anything I said that you took the wrong way? I'm just curious, or something like that, right?
I felt so awkward when I said this. Did it land that way? Like, did you feel the same way? Like, find parity, right? And I've actually said that sentence. Yeah.
And you can even say, like,
I love that.
The story I'm making up in my head was this.
Right.
So it opens this up. Yeah, the story I said is this. Is that what happened, or is that how you experienced it?
Yeah, I don't know. Taking ownership feels so good. I said this thing. It felt really awkward to me. Did you feel the same way about that? And like every time somebody goes, no, I didn't even register you said that. Or my favorite friends, right? Or no, yeah, that was weird, but I love you.
Right. Well, and what I was going to say is, this is also the difference in levels of friendship. If I'm really close friends with someone, right? Like, I have a friend, I talk about her. She's the last paragraph of the book, which she still can't believe. I'm like, okay, you're like always my rock, so you should believe. My friend Kendra, she's typical. She's incredibly sweet and kind. And I will tell her, okay, like, there was this thing, and I do all the things with her because she's one of my closest friends. And so then she will say, sounds like they didn't care, right? Or I will say, I did this weird thing with you, like, and she'll be like, it's fine. I didn't think anything of it. But part of me clarifying with her is because there's so much safety and intimacy 100%. And closeness. I can't clarify, or I can't get into it with everyone, because that also goes back to, you're an acquaintance. Like, our interaction is not, it's heavy in my mind, but it's not heavy in terms of the parity of the relationship. Right.
Yeah.
So I think these are the things this is why we needed a book of our own and not a book for typical people, because I buy every friendship book that comes out, And so many of them, I'm like, okay, well, you're looking for a level of self-regulation that I do not possess. So it's lovely that you think I could do that.
Self-regulation at a level that's just not realistic. Like from page 1, I can feel it right now reading page 1 and being like, okay, so the rest of this book is kind of not work for me. Like just in chapter 1, like the tone of this person is so regulated. I can't relate to you immediately. No, thank the Lord that we've got more authors like yourself. It was a very sneaky plug for your pluggables too. Here, pretty close to the end of the show, but we will circle back to those. But do we have any lasting questions here, Aaron? At the very end of this episode, do we have any final thoughts? I know, I mean, I have so many. I wasn't kidding about the part 2. I already texted Aaron. This subject is.
I would love to come for a part 2. I love you guys. I can't believe we've never met at the international conference. What was I doing? I'm always so swamped. But we have to meet.
No, I know that we've been in groups standing around like the same 20 or 30 people chattering, but I don't know that we've had our like the 3 of us standing in a cafe one-on-one, 1v1v1.
And I also get so overwhelmed by the crowds. Like that's where my ADHD comes in. Like I get so overstimulated, and the only child in me also comes out where I'm just like, there's so many people in this room.
And we gravitate towards the people that we know, and we hang around them, and we like find our circles, and
Or sometimes I have to go hide because so many people are like touching me and stuff that I'm like,
the social hangover, that version of the social hangover or the social overstim. Like we like one of the wonderful things about that safe space is that we're all radically accepted to treat that overstimulation exactly how we feel. Some of us are like, oh my God, my battery has never been this recharged. And other people are like, my battery's exploding. It's blowing up in my chest. Like my battery is literally exploding. I have to go protect myself in a hotel room or else my lithium battery will blow up. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So in your book, and I know Stephen's experienced this too. He's talked to me and other friends of his about this kind of thing, is the post-event ruminative cycle of getting in your head. And you touched on this in what you just said, but it's like, did I talk too much? What did I say? Like questioning every little thing or going over that stuff in your head. And I think that does happen with ADHDers as well as ADHDers quite frequently. Tell us more about that like post-event processing.
Yeah, I think the post-event processing is like the most painful thing. And then what's sad is it often sucks the life out of what was a really good interaction, right?
100%.
So my clients will go from like, this was the time of my life to like, this was the worst experience ever. And the pendulum comes from those post-event ruminations. And as a champion ruminator who's sort of a reformed ruminator, I have a lot in the book about how to stop that ruminative cycle, because I think that it doesn't help us. It helps us with all of that anxious overcorrection and telling yourself a story, right? And it takes away any magic that we felt, right? Like any moment.
It crushes it. It crushes it. Like it could be 99.9% magical, special, wonderful. And that 0.1%.
You focus on the negative.
15 solid minutes torture, straight torture. And I mean, I want people to listen, like time dilation involved. Bias. Yeah, that negativity bias, 15 minutes can feel like a lifetime. Like that, the whole walk home or the whole drive home is just insufferable.
And for days afterwards. And, there's all kinds of tips out there. One of them was like, take a bath. And I was like, I would just be in the bath then thinking about the rumination. Like I would just be wet. I would just be wet.
I would just be wet. I would just be wet. Really good.
What are some of those things we can do that are helpful for neurodivergent folks?
Okay, very good. Getting us on track, Aaron. We can break the ruminative cycle with a pattern interrupt, right? So go do something else. Go exercise. You can even put an elastic on your wrist and bling the elastic to interrupt the pattern. Because our brain focuses on good over bad, or bad over good, but also our brain, it's stimulating, right? So remember, our brain is understimulated. So that rumination is like a tasty dopamine rush for our brain. It loves it. It grabs onto it. The other tip that I use a lot is don't go to why questions, because you cannot know why. I cannot know why I cannot parachute into someone's brain, and why questions keep us stuck. They keep us in that ruminative cycle. Another is challenge the story, right? Like I have this story and let me challenge it. The one that I think is literally the best tip I've ever gotten is from Ned Hallowell himself, which is about make a distraction that's as powerful as the thing you're ruminating about. And he calls it the demon. And he has told me this himself when I was worrying about selling this book. And I would be like, they sent out 14 things. I'm waiting. He was like, okay, you're ruminating about this and you're catastrophizing. And I was like, yes, I am. Yeah. And so he was like, do something that's as powerful. So I started writing the book, because writing the book was on equal with this rumination. So you have to have a distraction that's, Jessica McCabe calls it like a buddy project, right? So you're waiting for something or you're ruminating about something. What's an adjacent project you could do that's as stimulating? Where's a place you could go that's as stimulating? Because that stimulation piece is, I think, part of why the rumination is so bad for us, is like, that rumination's tasty for us. It like keeps us going. Oh yeah.
It's activating. It's activating. Yeah.
It's activating.
Yeah. We need something to channel that energy into. And that's why suppression doesn't work. It backfires when you try to be like, don't think about that. Stop thinking about that. Why am I thinking about that? Why
you can't control that. Why would you think about it? I'm like, hi, have we met? I'm Caroline. Like, have we met?
Yeah. Why is the objective? I think underneath the why is that objective of, I want to stop this, or I know that it's something that is not serving me and I don't like this either about myself, or I'm averse to this. And the why assumes that there's something important that we need to investigate and go further into. And most of the time it's not. So actually just like trying to put more energy into finding, well, why am I thinking about this? Why does this keep coming up? Why does this happen? Is digging further in and putting more energy. It's activating that stuff. So what we want to actually do is shift the energy and channel it into something else, so your brain can still be active, but on a different track. It's a diversion.
Yes. It's like a different train station, right? Yeah. Like you're going to a different stop.
Channel it. I use train station metaphor since I was in high school. If I can add another layer, because I agree with that entirely, and I would say that, that's news. That is also new to me. The idea of parity, of pairing an equally strong motivator. And
that's really good. Producer. Love that.
It's Ned Hallowell, so I want to give him full credit. And he has it in ADHD 2.0, but he also personally has said it to me, because he's been integral on this journey, just as a support, where I babble at him and he says like, you need to leave your house and stop doing, like he's just been great about that stuff. And he was like, haven't you read my demon? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, well, you're not using it.
That's funny. So the other layer I want to add is going to sound a little perverse, but I'm doing that on purpose. Dolphins. I have a voice in my head that's playing alongside whatever thing I'm pairing, right? And it's from my father, and he's public about this now, so we could be public about it. But he has NPD, and I'm encouraging folks to take a single page out of the narcissism textbook. My father once said to me when I was very young, Stephen, the second that conversation ends with a person, more often than not, they stop thinking about you, like within minutes. And I said, that sounds so hurtful. And he said, no, let me explain why. They have parents, they have siblings, they have friends, they have bosses, they have fellow employees, they have shit to do. All of that amasses to something bigger than you. So I promise you, within a few minutes of you ending that conversation, they are immediately and instantly thinking about something else on their plate. And this hit me at a very young age, like teenager spiraling moment, right? Where I was ruminating and freaking out about some friend who I said something to, and it landed, right? It wasn't about ego. In fact, it was an ego killer, right? He was like, trust me, they have bigger problems than you immediately after the conversation is done. And it's most of the time. He's like 9 times out of 10, they immediately face the thing that they were facing before they spoke to. And I got to be honest, I still go back to that record in my head. If I've said something weird and bizarre, I walk away and I go, you know what? They have at least equal the problems I've got going on in my life. They at least equal the moment this conversation is
You're not as important as you think you are.
You're not as important as you think.
Important. Yeah.
And that's why I always say, like, that goes back to my, like, it isn't about you if they don't want to take a next step. It could genuinely be about them. And I get it. Other people have rejected you. Other people have lied to you. Other people have said that it was, it wasn't about you, and it was. But before you write that story, understand also, most people are, like your father said, they're dealing with their own stuff.
Yeah.
And then there's another piece of this that hits on rumination, which is also, it wasn't a big moment for them. Right? It wasn't a big moment for them. It was a big moment for you. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so we're building it up as this huge moment. And sometimes I'll say to my clients, like, how many seconds was this? And they're like, maybe
the
3
time
seconds.
signature. Yeah, the time signature is so important.
The whole conversation.
Like, you were with them an entire day, right? You kayaked, you had lunch, you went to a Boston Harbor Island and had a picnic. You did this, you did that.
This was one moment.
This was one moment.
3 to 5 second moment.
3 to 5 second moment. And that ruined the whole day. Right. And that's the other piece, Aaron, to bring up is the catastrophizing and the black and white thinking.
Yeah, I use that word a lot. Yeah.
Because I think that we know this from research, we're very prone to black and white thinking. And I think that is another piece that I talk about in the book. And I personally have worked on it a lot. And I'm not saying I've like beat it or anything, but I definitely have gotten better at catching myself in that black and white thinking or catching myself in the catastrophizing.
Yeah, it's a practice. It's not something that happens overnight. It's because we get in this habitual cycle of jumping to whatever the conclusion, especially when we're stressed out or anxious or in fear, any of these really strong emotions. What happens? We kind of regress back to what feels comfortable and back to what's habitual. So in our behavior, we go right back to that place that you were when you were 12 years old.
Yes.
And you say to yourself, oh, it must be me. Oh, I did this. Or that script in your mind that catastrophizes that small little thing that feels so cringy or so bad in the moment. But it's just that one thing. It's not, doesn't color the entire thing. It's not black or white. It wasn't all good, all bad. Just because I did the one thing that ruins the whole day. That's black and white. That's catastrophizing. And we're focusing too much on that instead of looking at it as like, this was one moment. This was just one thing. And that practice though of going there and like kind of labeling that, even of like, I'm catastrophizing right now. I'm taking this personally. I'm feeling rejection because that's what I do, right? Or that comes from this thing. Like you can kind of label it, and then it takes the weight off of it for you. You can kind of like learn to objectively shift. So yes, it might still happen. It happens to the best of us because it was ingrained when we were kids, right?
And I know my parents have a ton of black and white thinking. Like that is their MO. So
we're shown a lot of this is modeled for us, how our parents do it, how we were raised, how we were shown. If we weren't shown a different way to do it, we do what we know. We do what we're raised with. But as adults, now we have the opportunity and the choice to evolve, to learn new skills, and to test those out and try those out and adopt those day to day. So it's a practice. The more we do it, the better we'll get at it.
Yeah, I love that. And that goes back to my practice mindset stuff. And I have a quote from Dr. Ari Tuckman I want to say here too. Ari said this to me in a podcast like a year ago, and it like rocked my world. He was like, if people are so concerned about time, so concerned about everything you say, maybe they're not your people, right? Like if someone can't stand that you're always 5 minutes late, or that sometimes you're 5 minutes late or whatever, and you're working on it, but then it leads to these terrible feelings in yourself, maybe they're not your people. Maybe they want a different type of friend, and that's okay. Right. And that goes back to Stephen's, you're shedding people and whatever. Like, at the end of an interaction, you should feel good about your friendship, not full of shame.
Element. Yeah, that was a huge element that made it okay to make the final break. In fact, that was the cornerstone of strength for me, because there's a quote that I think I've come up with, but it also could have been out of like Oliver the musical or something. But too much penance begins to receive a pittance, right? Like too much penance, a pittance. Meaning if you are constantly apologizing for the thing or constantly groveling, eventually you're getting less and less and less back, right, from that thing. And at a certain point, I was not only receiving nothing in the positive, I was receiving only negative, right? Shame and guilt tripping for behavior that I hadn't in the past. And this was a key for our listeners, I had plenty of examples of people who did not feel that way. And when asked or when spoken to, do I rub you in the wrong way this way? Have I made you feel these feelings? Has this been a cause of concern? The answer was, and I won't get into details, no. Right? The answer was no. Nuance is not important here. It was no. I love you for these reasons. You're here for me and these reasons. I find our friendship important for these reasons. And so when I was able to compare those to this individual person, I started to get angry in a healthy way. I started to get mad and upset. I got fed up in my own way. I was like, wait, I put so much time and energy into groveling for a best friendship that I was never going to actually have with this person past a certain point, and B, that I did not need. It was not a need. I did not need that relationship that had become, dare I say, toxic, right? And one-sided.
Right.
Yeah. So that was what you said, and the shame of it all was definitely a cornerstone. Waking up to being like, I'm in a shame spiral, kind of arbitrary. I can't say arbitrarily. There was real pain. There was real sadness involved. But I'm grieving and groveling. There should be a chapter in there about grieving and groveling.
Well, that'll be the next book. There'll be a part 2, I'm sure. I mean, and I just want to say this because I've been through these different things too, Stephen. And I want to just say this is like, you know, we also are evolving. And I don't know if typical people are evolving in the same way we are. But there's, you know, thousands and thousands of people having late diagnosis, some of whom are listening to this show, right? There are people who are discovering their ADHD, they're discovering things. So I want to say this too. Caroline 1997, which was when I graduated from college, is not the same as Caroline now. Totally. And that also affects friendships. So many times, like late diagnosis women or men will say to me, like, you know, I had this relationship, but now I realize they didn't actually treat me that well. And before I knew my ADHD brain, I kind of took it or I kind of didn't realize, or I kind of didn't see how toxic it was. Or, you know, the pandemic changed people. There were people who, you know, have, you know, some challenges since then and aren't addressing it, right? Whatever it is. And I think that's a big thing in the neurodivergent community, that we are evolving. Yeah. And so many people that I encounter are on this like growth journey because they found their diagnosis finally, right? And I think that's something that we have to keep in mind. So many neurodivergent people say to me, I'm so ashamed I don't have any friends from high school. And then they tell me all the ways that those people weren't good for them. I don't think that that's a source of shame, right? Yeah. I think that we're evolving, and that means we're going to have different friends for different purposes, and we're going to have different phases of life.
Yeah, no, right? This is important to underscore. The layers that you described of types of friends is of paramount importance to me, because I did not commit to that knowledge and to that self-awareness for a while of like, this is this kind of friend, this is this kind of friend, for a long time. Everyone was my best friend, and it took interactions with more neurotypical folks or folks who have a different condition that is let's call it more skilled at boxing and labeling. I did learn over the course of 15 plus years that not all friends can be best friends, right? So that's another point that I want to highlight is, yes, I'm in an industry, I work in a vocation that creates a lot of acquaintances, right? A lot of people that you have in a black book for a very specific reason. This person 3D prints stuff. This person owns a bar. This person owns a theater. This person owns a bunch of guitars, right? That's a producer's mindset, is who do I call to solve this problem? And in the past, I used to think we're all best friends. I have grown into a position, and sometimes through grieving and tragedy, the loss of a best friend. Oh, that's the feeling of somebody who was that important to me no longer being in my life. Well, that is way different than me not talking to the guy from Sennheiser microphones anymore, right? Like that's, I was able to go, well, that took an entire meditation and trip in Peru. You know what I mean? Like that to get over this thing. And what the thing that I wanted to highlight from what you were saying, the growing apart thing. I believe that it's extremely painful for ADHDers who struggle with even developmental like time signature, like how long it takes for us to develop in our brain, like so the developmental delays and things like that. There's a sensation, a spiritual sensation of I'm still that kid in college, even though college was 17 years ago. Like there's still that feeling of it, especially when this friend of mine was developed freshman year, second week of college, right? And that thinking, wait a minute, this era is over? Like, how could that possibly be? Was very dysregulating. However, the simple truth was still the simple truth at the end. And I'm quoting Francis Mallman from Chef's Table, season 1. At certain points in your life, I can't believe that's the note, but that's the mentor in this moment. At certain points in your life, people you once considered chosen family no longer hold a seat at your table. And it's not personal. It's not personal. It's just that they are no longer as relevant to you or you to them as you once were. And this is what he said in the episode. It's like, and it's not I don't love you anymore. It's not that I don't have love for you or held love for you. It's just that my table only has so many seats, right? That's just the simple truth of it. I can only invite so many people to dinner. And I didn't remember that until the situation with my friend, a decade after seeing that episode came up. And I thought, Francis Mallman, it's not about love. It's not about loss. It's about, I only have so many seats at my table. And we outgrew each other's relevance, if that makes sense. And that was easier to swallow.
I love that.
Thank you for being on the show today and showing us how to fill those seats, right?
Yes.
The information you gave us today will, I think, be very invaluable to our listeners about how to actually go about making, forming, and keeping friends and being more of your authentic self in those relationships and finding those people to surround yourself with that bring about and bring out those parts of you that you want to have be more public and more present in the world. So thank you so much for being on Attention Different, sharing this knowledge, writing the book. Go and get this book. I have it right here. Go
get yourself a manual.
Friendship Skills for Neurodivergent Adults, a guide for the anxious, uniquely wired, and easily distracted. And tell our listeners where they can find you, what your pluggables are, where they can get more of all of your great materials and everything that you do.
Well, thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Stephen. So I do a lot on Instagram and YouTube. So at author Caroline M. You literally just also can Google like friendship skills for neurodivergent adults and everything comes up. The book is anywhere books are sold. I know audiobooks are so important to our community. It is on audiobook and it's actually been discounted on Audible. So I don't know why, but go get it. And I also like people DM me all the time. I try to respond to everybody. I love hearing from people. I love questions. So, definitely don't hesitate if you're a listener and you get the book and you're like, what about this thing? Like, don't hesitate to reach out. I love to get a DM that's like, 12 pages long with people's life history. I live for it.
Awesome. Wow. Hey, risky business offering that up, but you heard it here, folks.
It helps shape my work, though. People's DMs literally make me go, this is a theme,
Well, thank you for taking the time to share all of this knowledge with us. And we would love to have you back in the future to talk more about all this.
We're going to call this part 1 of the friendship episodes because I can't even I'm shocked that we're almost at 100 episodes, Aaron, and I haven't thought this whole journey of like, hey, we got to have one that's just about making friends. and it's like totally to Caroline's point of the past. Like it's not a priority top of mind thing, which is ludicrous because it's so
we did have one on relationships where we did get into some of this, but it wasn't
but specifically like
yes.
The friendship episode. You know what I mean? Like I'm really glad that we have the friendship episode and it definitely deserves it.
It's so crucial. So let's come back to this. Let's keep going back to this topic. There's so much more to dive into with this, lots of nuance.
The Attention Different podcast is hosted by me, Stephen Tonti.
And me, Aaron Smith.
The Attention Different podcast is produced by David Grabowski, who also wrote the theme music.
Edited by David Grabowski and Ian Lopez.
Visit us at attentiondifferent.com, where you can learn more about our team, discover resources, and much, much more.
We're on Instagram at attention_different.
And you can watch all our episodes like this one, plus tons more free content on youtube.com/@attentiondifferent.